Hello, I'm Jennifer Bleen and I'm with Magnifying Minds, located here in Columbus, Ohio. And today we're going to be playing with Manus. I've been playing with Manus for the last few days, trying to see what it can do, and there's a lot of power behind it. Of course, it glitches just like all of our different language models do. However, this one's been interesting. I can pile on a lot of tasks. So I haven't tried this prompt yet, but next Friday on March 28th, I'm going to be conducting a webinar for Magnifying Minds, and we're going to be talking about how you can use AI in your small business. So I thought, why not try out a prompt today with Manus as a small business owner type of scenario and see what the power is behind it. So I'm not going to create websites and all of that yet today, at least not in this video, maybe for an upcoming one. But here we go. So I had started with using a ChatGPT and just prompted some questions to understand what kinds of documents that a small business owner may need to have in the scenario that we're going to be using. So the scenario, let's go ahead and paste that in so that you can see it, is that we are, oops, it looks like I did not even catch all of it. So let's try this again. Control Z. See, that's what happens when we go live. Let me go back over to my Word document. Here we go. Well, it looks like I had it, but for some reason it didn't copy all of it. So here we go. Try this again. And hopefully it grabbed everything this time. All right. So I have my prompt, and my prompt basically is, for whatever reason, it still doesn't seem to want to show me. Oh, here it goes. So my prompt is, I'm pretending to be a small online retail store that sells candles. I sell premium candles in this case. And I've built my business, but I'm ready to really grow it and take it to the next level. So as a small business owner, I'm looking to hire, I've just been my partner and I, and so, I'm looking to hire people. I want to go out and get some funding, and I'm just feeling overwhelmed. Mother's Day is coming up. So I'm just letting Manus know kind of where I'm at in my business, what some of my goals are, what state I'm in. So it kind of prompts it to think about maybe some legislation. I let it know my, products that I sell. And then, just give it some of my concerns, like, oh, I know I'm going to have to start advertising. And let's look at, if I'm going to hire people, what do I need for HR? Now, I'm going to tell you, when I went to ChatGPT and I just started asking questions, I have a lot of documents in here for various aspects of the business that, again, if I'm a small business owner and I'm looking to expand, I know I'm going to be asked for a lot of these, maybe not all of them, but I figured let's let Manus decide. So you can see there's business plans and strategies and pitch decks and finances and credit information and HR policies. I put a bunch of things in here. Now, we'll see how much Manus is able to handle, because this is a pretty large prompt and it might crap out on me when we try to enter it, but let's see what it does. All right, here we go. Fingers crossed. Now, one of the things that I noticed with Manus from playing with it with some other prompts this week is that when it'll do some thinking, and while it's thinking, it's starting to review, make sure it understands the prompt, and it puts together a plan as well. And so this plan will come up, it'll review whatever you've given it. And so here you see it's starting to create that plan or the project directory where it's identifying what is needed for it to be able to go out and actually complete the task that I have assigned it. So it looks like it's creating some files. So it's making it a to-do list. So you can see here that it started researching it, putting its plan, making its to-do list. Now it's going out and it's doing some market research, because I told it, hey, you're the expert on the industry as part of my prompt. And so looking at what kinds of trends, because again, I want to expand. I'm just a small business and I'm looking to grow this to a much larger business across the state. So it's getting me some statistics. So these will be things that'll be needed as probably part of maybe a SWOT analysis on the industry, as well as what the growth opportunities are, to see if the growth goals that I have placed in here are even reasonable. Now it's looking at, well, what some of the funding options that I can be considering. Again, I prompted it with, hey, what if I wanted to get an investor? Or I wanted to go to the SBA or go to a bank and get some loans. So I gave it some options in the things that I presented. So now it's looking at what my options are in social media. Now, some of these prompts you can see here where it's telling me how much time is being spent on each one of these items. I have found that on a couple of the items that I worked on this week that it can take 10, 12 minutes and then it starts to slow down and it might throw some errors. But this, for the most part, was a pretty straightforward prompt. I wasn't asking it to build code for me and website plugins, which I had tried in some previous prompts. And those, it gave a little bit of a hiccup, so to speak. Some of the other things that I've asked it to do is I gave it a bunch of data files, and then I gave it some data files, I gave it some websites, and I said, hey, create some programs and plans for me. Go research, what's going on in the market, what my competitors are doing, look at what my offerings are, and help me. So it took a while on that particular prompt. I'd say I went back and forth probably for about 8 hours. I mean, there was, of course, lag time in there, but it would crap out. Tell me it's overcapacity, servers aren't working, because again, we're still in beta. And so I think as they figure out their back-end systems, that process probably would have happened a lot quicker. It was just that during the time I had to wait because I couldn't access it, or it wasn't up and running, or the servers were overloaded. So let's see, where is it right now if we go and look? One of the other things, real quick before we look, that I noticed with Manus, and this is different than if you work with Claude or GPT or Meta, I can go in here and start talking to it. I can say, hey, keep up the good work, you're doing great. And I can give it information and feedback while it's still working. And if you've been a heavy user of the other language models, to create these types of documents and things like that, you have to put your initial prompt and then you have to wait till it's done thinking and doing its thing before it will actually accept your next prompt. And so here I can keep talking to it, giving it ideas if I wanted to, while it's working, which is really nice, because I know a lot of times if I'm working with Claude or GPT or Grok or any of those, I'll think of, oh crap, I forgot to add this to my prompt. And here, if I think of something, I can go ahead and add it in as it's going along. But let's see what it's created for us so far while it's over here thinking. So we had my prompt, we did the funding, social media, market research. So it's completed its initial phase, this is another thing that I like about Manus, is it actually gives me updates and then it tells me what it's going to do next. So in here, it's done some of the research and it's looking at the Ohio market specifically for me. It tells me some of the things that it found in its initial research and some of the success stories. That's awesome. Candle making in Ohio is great. Who knew? I didn't know. And now it's looking at the business plan and writing the executive summary. And another thing that I noticed in some of the other prompts I've done is that it actually gives me a README file. Now, it didn't do it in every scenario, but a couple of the scenarios, it would give me a README, which would tell me how to actually walk through all of the different documents that it's created. So that was something that was nice. So we'll see if it does that for me today. And it appreciates that I gave it some encouragement. So it's working on my plan. Okay, now it's starting to look at my financial projections, how it's going to get me to $2 million in sales. And so as it completes the sections, it'll update me and let me know where it's at. But right now it's still thinking. So I don't know if you've had a chance to play with Manus, you got it accepted into the beta and are having some fun with it, please let me know what you think and what kinds of use cases you would like to try. I've actually been, working with the people at Manus via their Discord channel, and they gave me some extra prompts so that I could create these videos for you. So we have several different use cases that we'll be trying here and uploading to the Magnifying Minds YouTube channel. So if it's something that you like and you enjoy what we do, so we'll be putting a donation, a way to help fund us, since we are a newer nonprofit. And really, our goal is to help small business owners and individuals, even teachers or people working their jobs, how they can leverage the different AI tools that are available and help them get better. Do things faster, free them up to be able to focus on more creative things. How can we get rid of the boring things that we hate to do, right? So there's a lot of different opportunities that are available to us. Let's see, what has it done? So it's completed the business plan and summary. So these are some of the sections that it's created for us in the plan. So it gave us our management structure and a hiring plan, what operations we got to consider, some strategies. All right, so now it's going to create some detailed projections and statements for us. And it looks like it's looking at our customer personas and getting us ready for those HR hires and some guidelines that we'll want to have in place. So it's still thinking. So it does take a while, but you can see how powerful this is. I just said, hey, go at it. Where I was doing this with one of the other standard models that I've been using for the last couple years, it would be a lot of back and forth and me engaging. So if I weren't here with you right now, I'd probably be off doing something else while this is running in the background, and then just checking in occasionally to see if there's anything that Manus needs from me. What I found, I was having it help take and organize a bunch of my documents that I had a lot of files. They were all over the place and various drafts, and I wanted to get those consolidated into some functional drafts. And it did a really good job of taking the, probably about almost 20 files and looking through those, organizing those by topic, and then it actually told me which one of my original files were part of it. So that was something that was nice, just to help me get organized, because it's so easy to just have your paperwork everywhere when you're trying to execute in your business as well as plan for the future. There's just a lot that goes on, and sometimes paperwork especially is the one that may slip if it's not critical paperwork that's required, for your business to process and, actually execute. Let's see, where are we now? So it's working still on the financial statements and projections. So, and you can see over here where it's saying which tasks it's completed. Like, I can go in and actually see for this particular document, these are the tasks that it had created for itself. So in order to help me with this specific piece for my execution strategy or expansion strategy overall, but here it's working on the financial projections. So in the financial projections, I can see that it created a structure of what was needed. It was looking at the industry. Now, here's where it's at. And here are the other tasks that it's planning to do for me. So it's going to do my marketing strategy. It's going to do my policies. So we're still not even halfway through this big prompt that I had provided to it. So we'll be a little while. Now, the other thing you'll notice is it has some knowledge suggestions. And the knowledge suggestions are if you're using Manus for a project and it just seems like you've got a lot of different things that are building up on each other. So as you have it go and do a task for you, you can actually select, do I want to add these particular knowledge suggestions in so that I don't have to re-prompt it again. So if I say, whenever I'm asking it to create a business plan, the types of things that I want here is it wants to know, do I want it to store that I am a candle making business and these are my goals. So I can choose to accept or reject this as something to add to its knowledge base. And then over here saying, hey, if you're going to be working on any kind of expansion, these are the typical documents that you want me to create for you. And so again, I can say, you know what, that's a great idea, because maybe I'm going to be working on another thing that I'm doing, especially if you're more of a consultant and you help different companies and you want to be able to leverage the impact of Manus with your clients. You can say, yes, these might be the types of things that I want. I'm not going to accept any of those right now or reject. I'm just going to kind of let them sit there. But it might come up with some other ideas of things that it thinks that maybe I should put in the knowledge base. So let's see, what are our updates right now? So it's completed the financial projections, and it has created my income statements and cash flow and balance sheets. So again, it's making a lot of this stuff up because I didn't give it a lot of real information. So it's kind of predicting what it thinks that I might need. So we'll see what kind of questions it comes up for me, because I did ask for it in the prompt to draft everything as the expert and looking at what is expected in the industry. You know, what should I expect? What would be some good metrics? And so we'll see what it comes up with. So it looks like it's suggesting that I need about $350,000 of investment to be allocated. And it looks like it chose investor route, so instead of the loan route. So we'll see. We'll see what it comes up with. And by the way, another thing that I'm testing out today is I decided to give Loom a try. I've been looking at it for a couple years, and today I decided I'm going to go ahead and use Loom. I've used some other products and I wasn't real happy with some of the editing capabilities. And with Loom, what's the name of the plan? I have to look it up here real quick. But they do have an AI enabled one that's going to help with editing. So we will see how the AI editing enhancement piece works. All right, where are we? Still working on the marketing strategy. Back in November, we had a great talk on how to use AI in marketing. So if you haven't had a chance to go to our website or go to our YouTube channel and check that out, we do have that from the, was B2B business, but now I believe they changed the name to Beyond Borders. And so they're a marketing company, and they were the ones who sponsored and provided a presenter for us who did an excellent job at showing you how you can create your own GPT and some prompts that you might want to use to help with your marketing and helping you build out some of the content and creative stuff that you need to do for your business. All right, what do we got here? So it's put together our marketing strategy. And so here you can see it's given that it's created who our target markets are, and it's given them personas, and it's done some brand positioning ideas and messaging. So curious to see what it's come up with, and given us a marketing budget of $75,000. So if we're asking for 350, it looks like the recommendation is 75 of that, and put down some implementation timelines in the measurement framework. So, all right. And it looks like we're going to be using Instagram, Pinterest, email, and some strategic partnerships. And so it's great. It tells us what it's done in a high-level summary, and then it tells us what it's doing next. Now here is where I can view all the files in this task. So right now it hasn't created everything, but you can see that it did do a to-do. It has the marketing strategies. You can see some of the different files that it's created for me. And when it's all done, I'm able to download everything as a batch if I want, or I can individually select here to say, oh, what do I want to do? Do I want to preview? Do I want to, download it or put it in a chat here? So. And of course, anything that any of these AI tools create for you, they're drafts, right? You can't take them as is. At least I wouldn't personally. But at least it gets you a nice start. And then this is something that you could review. You can enhance it, modify it. And then, anything that you're unsure of, you could take to your attorney or to your accountants and say, hey, here's what I've got. Here's what I'm thinking. And the nice thing about it is, instead of having, you spend maybe 10 hours on attorney fees, having them draft all of these things for you, you can actually have the AI do it, get you a pretty good start. Then you can add your own enhancements, and then you take it to your attorney to let them do the final bells and whistles and make sure everything is good and kosher. So that's always a nice thing for a smaller business who doesn't have deep pockets to, afford all the other services that are necessary at times, but may feel like a luxury at other times if they're using and relying on some of the special professional services for things that they could do themselves, if they had more time. All right, so we've got some policies still in work. So we can see where it's at. Yeah, I'm curious to see in the marketing what it's created for us. Maybe we can go take a look at that while it's building the other one. So if I go in and I look at let's go look at the marketing strategy and see what it's created. So it talks about who some of our personas would be for. It gave us a name. We are Ohio Glow Candle Company. Since we did not tell it the name of our business, it made up one for us. But we can see, so our designer Dana is who our first persona is, and gives us a breakout, where their income is, where they're located, some psychographics for our personas, some of the behaviors of this particular one, some of their pain points and frustrations, and what are some of the goals of that particular persona, and how we may want to approach them, and what kinds of key messaging we might want to use, and what channels it recommends for us to target them. And then if we go to our second persona it created, so this one is our Eco Emma, and so we can look at, the income changes a little bit, the ratio, and the occupations have changed. You can see some of the pain points are different as well, and some of their goals, and some of the messaging has changed. And now we get to our next persona that's been identified for our premium candle business. And you can look at some of the information here. So this is nice. It gave us some information to think about who we're targeting, how we may want to message to them. And again, these are suggestions, and they're a nice starting point, especially if you are a small business and you're thinking about what you want to do. Sometimes it can feel very overwhelming to start from scratch. And so here you can say, I don't really want to target that person. They don't really align with my values. So you can say, no, you don't want to use some of these personas, or maybe you want to adjust it to be slightly different, and you can go back and forth with Manus and say, you know what, I really don't like this one. This particular persona, and you can give more information and have it adjust it for you. So here are some of the marketing objectives. We want to bring more brand awareness if we're going to be growing. And so I put some goals in here for us. Gave us some customer acquisition goals, some customer retention goals, some revenue growth, and some brand positioning. ideas for us to think about here. Some brand strategies it came up with. Give us some ideas on our color palettes and our typography. So if you didn't already have a brand, this at least gives you something to think about. And the nice thing then is if you go to Canva, Canva is another tool and they have a free option. You could go in and actually take some of these suggestions and create some palettes and see what you think. Say, oh, I don't know if I like the Garamond or the Baskerville fonts. I don't even know what they look like. And you can go type them in and play with them in Canva and get a feel for what's being suggested. And then the nice thing is, if you've taken some of these and played with them a little bit, if you do decide, you know what, I just want to hire somebody, you can give this to them and say, here's what, kind of came back, and we played with it a little bit in Canva, and say what you like and don't like, and then they can take that information to start creating your mood board for you. So some packaging ideas, some more brand messaging. We're getting into our marketing channels and tactics. So it gives you some email marketing ideas. So that's, a fair amount in the strategy. So let's check in and see where we are. So it looks like we're still working on HR policies. All right, well, while it's doing that, let's go see what else it's created. Let's go start at the to-do. So here it's, done its research phase. You can see all the little check marks of everything it had identified that it wanted to research. Business plan, so it hasn't designed the pitch deck yet in the business plan development. Under financials, it's done all of the items that it had created as its own little project plan here. Same thing with marketing strategy. You can see it's still working on the policies and operations, has not touched our legal or any of the final deliverables for us yet. Let's see. Oh, what kind of compensation packages has it been thinking about? Those are still in flight, so it's not showing me yet. Let's go look at our balance sheet and see what it's come up with. Okay, so since it didn't have any real data from us, what it did is it created a template to say, hey, you need to go figure these things out. What are your assets? And, it gave a template to us for our little business here. And so now we can go in and plug in our real numbers since it didn't really have that information. All right, let's see what it's giving us. It gave us an update here. So it's completed our HR policies. It gave us an employee handbook. It's given us some other policies, suggested some compensation and benefits, and workplace safety guidelines. And so this is a foundation for us. Again, we'd want to go take this and maybe go to an HR policy company. At least, again, you've got a starting point, right? It's a starting point. So now it's going to develop our operational and IT policies, data security, business continuity, supply chain management guidelines. So this way, get us thinking that as we're going to expand our candle making online business, what do we need? How do we scale it? So I'm curious to see what kind of suggestions it came with. So let's go see what it came up with for HR. So it gave us an employee handbook. Let's see what's in that. So a nice little welcome to our Ohio Glow company. Tells us who our founders are, a little founder message. And it's come up with some policies, compensation, time off policies, performance management. Since we're an Ohio company, wonder how much research it did on Ohio employment law. So that would be something if you took, what it gave you, reviewed it, then you can start asking some specific questions and maybe even do some chain prompting. And this chain prompting is where you would take an output from one of your models and then you'd put it into another model. I found it personally to be very valuable to use that as a technique because we know AIs hallucinate, so it gives you the opportunity to have another AI check other one's work. So that's one value piece of it. Sometimes what I like to do is I'll take the exact same prompt and I'll feed it to 4 different models. And then that allows me to see kind of how each of the models approaches and thinks about the action. And then sometimes I may like an idea out of one model, and then I'll take that and feed it to another one where I liked maybe something out of that model to see what it comes back with. Don't be afraid to tell your models they're wrong. I do all the time, like, no, that wasn't what I was thinking, or hey, you said this, but it doesn't seem to make any sense to me. That seems backwards or seems like misinformation. And then you challenge it, and then it goes back to the drawing board. It's nice if you can point it into the direction of specific things or upload specific reference points. So I do that a lot where I have it cross-check between the different ones. But again, looking at the HR policy, I don't know if this is Ohio specific. You probably want to go out and hire an HR professional. But again, it's a starting point. It gets you thinking. You can, if you don't already have a mission statement or vision statement, at least this gets you thinking about it. And a lot of times when you're a small business, you just start. You just start, you go out, you sell some things, your widgets or whatever it is that you do, but you haven't really given a lot of thought about the back end operations of the business and how would you grow the business. And so these are some nice starts of things to think about. Gave some core values. Are these the right core values? Do they resonate with you if you were this particular candle making business? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. At least, again, it gives you something to think about. And if you're looking to do any kind of, core value creation, or you're looking at, really taking your company to the next level and looking at how you can use AI to help you with defining these, we'll be doing an AI accelerator later this spring as part of the Magnifying Minds workshop opportunities. And so that'll be a 6-week program where you'll be able to, really look at your business, and we'll just each week do a little piece of it and show you, what that piece is and how you can use AI to help you with defining and growing your business. And we'll introduce a bunch more tools. So we've got some different employment policies, anti-harassment policies here, some prohibited conduct and sexual harassment reporting. We've got some ADA compliance, any kind of immigration law compliance. So it looks like it's, thought about quite a few things here. And again, if this were your business, you would want to take these and say, does this make sense? It looks like here some dress codes are unslip shoes. So that might be applicable in your world. If you have a restaurant here, if you're working with hot wax, making candles, maybe this makes a lot of sense to have your hair pulled back so it doesn't get caught with a flame if you're using any kind of flames. So some things that it gave us. What's it working on now? So it looks like we are still working on some of our operational and IT policies. So I'm curious, what types of things do you need in your business? Have you sat and thought about what kinds of documentation that you've been meaning to get to and just feel overwhelmed and not sure where to start? What kinds of things would you use this for? So please drop your comments in when you watch this video and let us know, how would you like to use this or use some other tool similar? All right, what else can we look at here while we're waiting? So, let's see what our financial projections are, what it came up with. So, current state, I had told it we were making $400,000, and it made up what it thought our product mix was, because I didn't give it that information. So based on what other candle making companies are doing, it came up with what it thought would be our product mix, since it did go out and do some research on our candle making industry. And it gave us some suggestions of where it thought maybe our sales channels were. These may or may not be the correct ones, but it's possible. Maybe I haven't done any wholesale yet. Didn't even think about it, maybe, and I was just doing the direct to consumer because I started out with friends and family, as the prompt said, right? What would it expect our growth projections to be? How much would we have to grow that if we were planning to get to $2 million? And in here, it's suggesting that within 3 years, we can reach that goal. And then it's giving us some suggestions on what kind of future product mix it thinks that we should have. So here it's introducing some fragrance extensions and some wellness collection candles and luxury reserve collections. And it looks like it's introducing another potential sales channel for us. Has our small business here thought about going into any kind of corporate and custom type of candle making ideas? So that would be something to consider. There were some cost assumptions of what it thought that our cost of goods were to make these candles, and then what it thought we can do. It's like, oh, in year 1, we want you to improve your efficiency. So maybe the way I'm making my candles today by hand, maybe I still want to do that, but are there other things that I can do to bring more efficiency into my business? You know, as I'm teaching new people and hiring people in, if that is the growth path that it suggests, and I agree to that. So let's see, some scaling benefits. So can we get some efficiencies there? And how can we optimize our production? So based on our cost of goods, it's giving us what it thinks our expenses are. And, you know, it did this based off of the research that it did. And so for our funding, what our debt would be. So it's looking for some equity investment and some debt financing. So it's making a recommendation to actually do both. It's giving us some projections. So I'm curious, let's go look at what research it had identified. So it did some market research. So in here, it looked at the global candle market, it looked at the scented candle market, the luxury candle market, came up with some trends that it saw, consumer behavior patterns. Now, the things that I like to do when I'm working with them, which I didn't do here, I didn't specify give me citations. So when you're working with any of these tools and you see it's giving you very specific numbers, ask for the citations. And then what I like to do is, if there's a lot of citations, I actually give those citations to another language model and let that language model go and validate. Hey, can you find these citations? And sometimes what it'll do is it'll come back like, hey, yeah, I found these, but I couldn't find this other citation. And you're like, okay, so that might have been a hallucination. Then you can take that hallucination and say, okay, well, I'm going to throw that one out. And so any specific citations that were for that particular one, if I haven't been able to validate it, I can ask for, can you find me a similar type of statistic and give me a citation? And so sometimes you might have got a hallucination in the beginning, but then you can go ahead and ask for a replacement citation. And so then numbers may change a little bit, but again, it takes a lot of time off your plate. I found that sometimes researching can take a week. If you're really heavy into researching and looking at documents and reading them and looking for statistics, where that can be done in a half a day. And then you have your core statistics and notes that you need. So there are some different tools that you can use to help you with that. And, maybe that'll be another video here that I'll do for you. So, it looks like it found some state programs. Now, are these real programs or are they hallucinations? Not really sure. but the Grow Now program sounds interesting. So what I would do if this were my business and this is what was being suggested to me, I would look up every single one of these and I would go and research those programs. Go to their website, make sure they exist, and make sure what you're seeing here is still valid. It's giving us some other options here. It tells us maybe do a Kickstarter campaign if we wanted to do something. And that, reminds me, there was a local restaurant. They did a little campaign where they asked the neighborhood to be investors. And they said, hey, their investment strategy was more of a loan to them. And they had a guaranteed interest rate that they were going to give you as being an investor in them. Of course, there was the risk that they could have gone under over the course of the 5 years of the loan. But they were offering pretty good interest rates. Found out about it like a day before they were closing the window. And so I didn't have enough time to, go and do my due diligence on that particular offer. But it's something to consider if you've got a small business and you have people who really like your business. Maybe they would be willing to, be investors in it. So instead of going out to the banks and, giving all that interest to the banks, give it to your friends and supporters and the people who have been your best customers. So I thought that was an interesting way. And I forget which platform they had used, but there was actually a platform that's set up for that type of situation. So I was looking at what are some of it came up with some competitors. Again, are these real companies? Well, Bath & Body Works I recognize, and Yankee Candle, I don't know some of these other ones. Again, it might be worth checking those out. So it's given us some different opportunities and ideas to grow. Let's go see where we are. So it's completed its operational and IT policies for the business. So it's come up with some data security. It gave us a business continuity plan. So in case we had a business disruption, something happened, including some emergency response procedures. So maybe we can go check that one out. Supply chain. Anybody who had a business during COVID, you had to rely on other organizations for your parts and pieces and material, you probably had some kind of supply chain disruptions. So it looks like it's given us some. Now it's building the package for us. So let's go see. So with this one prompt and task that I have given this, we have been here for quite a while. And let's see what all it's come up with. So it's got some operations. Let's go see what's on the operation manual. So a little bit of a company overview. We obviously are going to probably have to go fill that in if this was really our business. It's included what the values were that it came up with earlier, procedures, what kind of a review schedule we should have for those procedures, looking at our organizational structure, some of the departments that we need to consider, some roles and responsibilities to think about, especially now that we're looking at going out into marketing. Now, of course, if you're a small organization, you probably don't need all of these roles full-time, and this is where you might get a gig worker to come in and work with you part-time. There are fictional companies that are available, like if you need a fractional human resource person or a fractional CIO or CTO or CDO or any of those types of roles. It's like, you know what, I need somebody there for guidance, but I don't need them every day. So those are just some things that, even though you're seeing a suggestion here of all these different roles, you may not need all of those roles full-time. So just something to think about. Some communication channels to look at. I love my daily huddles. Been in the Agile community for too long, I guess. But, that's something that's important for any business, really, not just Agile teams. Here's some different ideas for a production process. Don't know if these are true specs for this made up company that we have, but again, it went out, it did some research, it came up with some suggestions, so some things to think about. You know, like, oh, would this make sense? Is this something that I want to do? Some different suppliers, where I can get them, some things to think about for them, scheduling considerations. Oh, it's interesting. It actually gave us some instructions on fragrance and color additive or color additions. I've never made a candle, so I don't know if these are good instructions or not, but if you were a candle business, you know, you would be able to look at this and quickly make adjustments, right? There might be some steps here that are out of order, or maybe some of the temperatures are wrong, but at least you got a straw man to work from. You don't have to do everything yourself. You've got a good starting point. Talking about labeling. So we got quality control in here, some equipment maintenance, like, oh, here's some different production equipment that it thinks that my business as a candle making company has. All right. Let's see, what else do we got? Oh, excuse me, I'm getting hiccups now. All right. So it looks like it's done all the requested business documentation for our premium homemade candle business. And it'll be a zip file. And all of these documents provide a solid foundation for my business expansion. And so this is where we can go and look. Now, I don't know what it has created as an interactive website. So let's create a web page and let's just see what it's going to do with all of this. All right, so it is creating a website for us. So let's go see while it's doing that what all it's done. So it's got a zip file that it created that we can download all of the documents. Has some enhancement questionnaires. So let's see what that's about. Oh, this was the one that I asked for. This is where part of my prompt was, hey, when you're done creating everything, I know I'm going to have to answer questions, so create a document for me. So here it's telling me, okay, in the business plan, here's some questions you need to answer. In your financial documents, here are some questions that I need to answer. In my marketing strategy, here are some questions I need to answer. And it just kind of makes its way down so that I can finish completing the documents that it created for me. So, you know, wanting to know what I do, kind of information, and then these would be the types of things that I can go in and insert and then enhance all the documents. All right. And then I like here, wait, where was it? Prioritize a meeting. So schedule a session, you know, a session to actually go in and look at all of these. All right, so let's see what it's creating for a website. Now, this is all make-believe, is, you know, my real business or anything. So I don't know enough yet, being that this is in beta on Manus, on how much it protects your information and all of those, you know, types of considerations. If you're using some of the other large language models, you have the ability to say, yes, I want my information to help train the model, or no, keep it private. And so I'm assuming that there'll be something similar that you'll be able to do here. Now, here we go. So remember I told you it can get a little bit glitchy. It's experiencing some technical issues with the sandbox environment while it's trying to create the website for the Candle business documentation. So it might try some different approaches. And so you can see where it's had some errors. So it decided to go figure out what the error was and see if it could correct itself. And so it's having some persistent technical issues with the environment. And, I've run into this several times with some of the different prompts. But overall, this is pretty comprehensive. It can do a lot of work with, one prompt. I gave it one prompt. I wasn't sitting here typing prompt after prompt and asking it questions and telling it what to do. It decided what it thought it needed to do. I could guide it along the way if I choose. But overall, I thought this was a pretty successful Manus task. So let me know your thoughts, and we hope to see you on Magnifying Minds webinars, joining us and participating in some of the programs and watching some of our other videos as we start to create them. Have a good evening. Take care.